and welcome to the Bald Ambition Podcast. I am your bald host, Mookie Spitz, and the one with ambition today is Noriko Yokoi. She is co-founder of 3 Cubed AI. Welcome aboard.
Hi, Spitz. How are you?
I am well, and I can't wait to talk about AI. And I want to talk about AI in a way most people don't talk about AI. I want to cut through the hype.
Mm-hmm.
AI is ubiquitous. You turn on your TV, your news show, you're scrolling on LinkedIn. Everyone is doing AI. Everyone claims they're doing AI.
Mm-hmm.
You are doing AI, but you are doing AI in a way which is demonstrably pragmatic. You are
Thank you.
heightening efficiencies within the world of communications, digital communications, specifically vis-a-vis healthcare. I will pass the mic to you to set it up in terms of describing where you are and how you got here. But I just want to share my excitement that you are the co-founder of a startup where you're doing real things, and that is so refreshing. So welcome aboard.
Thanks so much, Spitz. If I can call you that.
Spitz is good. Spitz is good.
So, so a little bit of my background. I have spent 20 years working at various advertising agencies on Madison Avenue. I started my career actually at Rap Collins, which would be, considered a direct advertising agency. And it really was a precursor to digital advertising agencies and the way that people do ads now. And then from there on, I went on to Wonderman, Ogilvy, and did a lot of B2B and then went on to working at healthcare advertising agencies. In the 20-year span that I worked at ad agencies, the first 10 years was spent mostly in consumer and B2B, and then the last 10 years was spent in healthcare. Advertising or promoting to healthcare providers, to patients, etc. And that's when I met you, Spitz.
That's right. And we had an overlap at Click Health,
That's right.
which
That's
is
right.
the trailblazing Canadian organization doing most of their work in the States.
Mm-hmm.
And you were in the role of the planner, the strategic planner. And for folks not familiar with the agency universe, I saw you as really an uber kind of strategist. You were able to connect the dots between client needs and the execution of the great things that we did. Could you add a little specificity around what you
Mm-hmm.
did and how you did it from that strategic point of view?
Sure. An account planner or strategic planner in advertising is really about thinking about communications from a, 500 or 5,000 foot level. And basically what we're doing is making sure that when there is an ask from the client or they have a lot of different asks, right? But it's all about communications. Is it raising awareness? Is it making sure that people know that this, particular brand is launching? Or they're not, making great sales at the moment, or they're lagging behind in terms of, position within the market. There are lots of different reasons why you need communications to raise awareness or to move the needle from, desire to action. And what we do really is to understand which segment they're going after. And I suppose that's a sort of a word that could be rephrased as a target audience or group of people you're going after. And then really understanding their unmet needs and coming up with communications that are most appropriate for that. And, most of the clients come with a business objective or business goal. Oh, our sales are tanking, or our scripts aren't doing well, or people haven't heard of our brand. And these are real, problems and business objectives that they talk about. And as an advertising agency, we collectively have to solve for that. And the first port of call for any account services person is to come to myself or to you, Spitz, because we sort of look at the challenge and try and put it into a way that will solve the problem, not by stating and reaffirming the business objective as stated by the client, but then using that challenge to see how we can move a needle through communication. So that's really what we do. And sometimes it's a mystery to clients, right? Because the agency is like a sort of a box where all these people are running around. They don't really get to see what we do. They only see the kickoff. Maybe they see, what happens as part of the first review, and then they see the final output, but they really don't know what's going on. So
Yeah, yeah, they're not privy to how the magic happens, or
that's right.
some might say how the sausage is made, which is difficult, especially within healthcare,
Mm,
life sciences, pharmaceutical companies. You have tremendous complexity
mm-hmm,
in terms of translating the efficacy and the potential risk of treatments, of devices, into simple, compelling, manageable bits of content, especially these days in the digital world, and then translating that into effective advertisements or placements or awareness building educational campaigns. So part of your job, our job, was to understand the goals of the client,
mm-hmm,
which could be fairly generic, which is just increase our business, increase our risk, or from a more favorable perspective, improve public health
mm-hmm,
through this indication, through this
mm-hmm,
FDA approved treatment, and then make it happen in a manner that does that translation. And I think that's a key point for us in terms of setting up your new startup, because how the sausage is made is incredibly time consuming, it's expensive, but at the same time is a repetitive type of process with built-in methodologies that requires a lot of manpower, big teams, a lot of functions.
that's
So
right.
can you describe how this unmet need engendered this opportunity to plug in AI? Because that's what AI ultimately is good for, at least at this inchoate stage.
That's
Taking
right.
processes, step-by-step processes
Mm-hmm.
that we do, and making it automated, but in a smart kind of way, in a most significantly a dynamic kind of way, flexible way.
That's right. So, how I came to this is I actually went independent in 2018. So, it's been about, 7 years since I went independent. And one of the goals that I had as an independent practitioner was to find a more effective way to do advertising. As you know, as I know, and most clients know, creating communications is long and arduous and expensive effort. And now, it's been the world of advertising or communications, especially with the rise of digital, has turned into omni-channel marketing, which means that, you're placing ads for specific target audiences, the right time, the right channel, at the right message. But that means that a lot of the communications is personalized into smaller chunks. And that gave a lot of opportunity for agencies to create from the original concept and splice it and dice it and put messaging in this dimension, that dimension for this, and tweak the image. And
Many,
so,
many iterations, right?
right,
Right. So you have
right.
seed content, core content, and you
Mm-hmm.
repurpose it. You repurpose it by where it appears, to whom it appears. And
Mm,
we need to emphasize, especially for our listeners not privy to the world of healthcare communications, it's even more intense than finance, which is highly regulated.
yes, yes,
FDA,
yes, because
OPDP,
yes,
right?
because of all the regulation, you really are very restricted to how you use the messaging, how you use the claims into messaging, and if it's approved or not approved. So every time a client engages a new advertising agency, they do enormous amount of training with the agency folks to make sure that they understand what claims can be used, what messaging can be used, in what way, so that when the advertising comes back and they review it, it's something that is already approved. If it's not approved, if you don't use the same language, it has to go through reviews again, which is very, very time consuming.
Every change,
Yes.
every nuance. And if we're to give it a little context, we live in this multi-channel, omni-channel environment. You have an advertisement which is making a claim about a drug.
Mm.
With that comes adjunctive fair balance. We need to reveal the side effects profile to present the whole story of that drug based on the clinical trials that it went through, right? The package insert in a nutshell needs to come along with the branded advertisement.
That's
Now
right.
that becomes very complex within a world where any change that you make, depending on the channel, depending on the audience, needs to go through a legal and regulatory review process, which slows everything down to molasses.
That's right. So
And that's been the status quo
it
for forever, really,
it
and
it
especially
has.
exaggerated with digital.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
I mean, digital was supposed to make things easier, but with all of the different channels and all of the different ways in which you can communicate, it's actually compounded the work for clients and agencies. Obviously, it's a lot more work for agencies, which is great. But one of the things that I wanted to solve for was just the inefficiencies of the agency world. And I try to look for lots of different solutions. How can you be small but be nimble? How can you be small and do a lot more work? I did offshoring, I did collaborations, and all of those were suboptimal until AI came. And, we all,
Ta-da! There you
that's
go.
right.
Yeah.
No, OpenAI launched in the world on November 30, 2022, and that started off an AI revolution. And it was a different type of AI than anything that people had seen before because automation had been around for many decades. But it was really more machine learning and artificial intelligence. And what it did was to help people who already knew their subject matter do repetitive work, but it didn't help non sort of professionals to use the machine learning and AI. That's why you had very specialized statisticians and developers doing AI. And what Gen AI did was totally just blow the entire system apart because of the predictive way in which OpenAI has been able to do and what people have been talking about. And Spitz, you mentioned it yourself, is how you can get rid of repetitive work. And people have been talking about how to apply that into business. But if you think about the initial phase of this revolution, it was all about consumers and individuals playing around with OpenAI, with ChatGPT, and other LLMs, large language models. And it is only very recently in 2024 that businesses started adopting generative AI tools. And now that we're in 2025, we've gone agentic, right? Agentic is the big theme for 2025, and a lot of different businesses are jumping onto it. For us at 3 Cubed AI, we suddenly saw a great opportunity to create digital content really, really quickly. This is the repetitive stuff we talked about.
Right.
Not
Let's talk about what you mean by agentic right now,
Mhm.
which is the dawn of the agent,
Yes,
right? So
that's
so
right.
so you have the standard transformer model,
Mm-hmm.
which is you go to ChatGPT, you go to Grok, you go to Claude, and then you type in a single prompt. And
Mm-hmm.
then the transformer technology using the matrix math of the trained LLM does amazing things. It could write
Yes.
an essay for you. It could present information in dynamic ways that
Mm-hmm.
are truly mind blowing. But it's a single prompt responding to single query.
Mm-hmm.
An agent, just for clarity for our listeners, we've entered the agentic age, which is multiple tasks of formidable complexity are performed in a sense behind the scenes to do much more sophisticated
Yes,
kinds of work.
that's
And
right.
and it lends itself perfectly to the complex methodology of a marketing and communications agency that requires a step by step generative content creation, review,
Mm-hmm.
and distribution process. Am I getting this right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay, great. Great.
Because, if you think about it, for anyone who is interacting with a ChatGPT, for instance, it's fast, it's great, it gives you lots of um, options for you to generate content for you, but you're interacting with it all the time, right? In order to get to the end point, you are constantly in front of it, typing and asking it to revise something that it's
Input,
totally,
output,
yes,
input,
exact,
output, input,
yes,
output. But, you don't have time for that for a
that's right.
complex set. What you want it to do is, a perennial example is find me the best hotel room in Miami.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a chat GPT search will do, you go step by step and you keep refining your solution. But what an agent will do, and it can do it already in the advanced subscription, even for Chat GPT, it can literally take over your computer.
That's
It
right.
will go to TripAdvisor. It will cross-reference your own preferences. It'll check traffic within the
Mm-hmm.
Miami area. And if you're a fan of music, country music, it'll look at the local entertainment venues to correlate the schedule of your favorite bands with your stay in Miami to find not only a cheap hotel room with the best view of the ocean, but the least traffic and your favorite music on that weekend. So that's a fairly banal example, but that captures the essence of it, which is an agent taking over your computer to perform a series of complex queries to solve a much broader macro problem.
Yeah, it can basically solve a set of steps,
Right,
and you don't have to interact with it at every step. That's what makes
right,
it so beautiful.
right.
So what's different about agentic model is, for instance, I will have to provide an input just like with a ChatGPT. But you have a lot of AI agents or bots, or if you want to call it automated workflow, whatever you want to call it. But you've got these individual bots that have been trained and preset to do something. So imagine if you have like 7 steps of things that need to be done. You are bringing on agents to be very specific about one of these steps. And then once that step has been done, it then throws
Feeds
over the
the next stuff.
yes,
Right, right,
exactly. So it's
right,
almost like a factory process where it's going from one step to the other, and that's exactly what it mirrors. And it's really perfect for the advertising agency world, because if you think about it, you have the account services team, you have project management team, you have a copywriter, you have a creative director, you have a strategist, and all of us are really almost like on a factory floor doing our
right.
very specific, specialized role, and feeding the communications until it's finally completed. So what we've created is exactly that. So a client may say, I want a derivative content or social media post that's based on this original concept, but make it for social media, make the dimensions all correct, and maybe you need a little bit of a different eyebrow for the top, and you need to put indication and important safety information, etc. And so instead of a team doing that at an agency and spending a week doing it, our content hub, AI generated content hub, can create that in 2 minutes.
Yeah, and that is astonishing. Not only a week, but we're talking sometimes months where
Mm-hmm.
the actual output of these creative exercises need their own review. A change will be mandated, and then you go back to the beginning of the line. So you need to repeat this process involving this extended team of multidisciplinary experts over and over and over again. So
That's
it's
right.
expensive, it's
Mm-hmm.
time consuming. And as Noriko mentioned, it's reliant on core pieces of content which can and should be pre-approved. So in idealized structures, in a sense, you're creating the DNA of some advertising campaign for a healthcare life science pharmaceutical company. This
Mm-hmm.
core content is reviewed by their lawyers and
Yes,
compliance people and deemed good to go.
that's right.
And then you could put it through these machinations of tweaking it, repurposing it based on layout. And then, as Noriko mentions, you just let an agent crank through this process rather than a team of experts having to expend many, many hours
That's right. Imagine
to do
like,
it.
yes. So imagine if you could feed into an agentic model your claims document,
Right.
your
The core,
brand,
the
yes,
DNA, the
yes,
DNA. Right.
yes, claims
Right.
document, the
Right.
brand guidelines, your
Right.
original concept, your messaging,
Yeah.
which are the main components that clients feed an agency, right?
Right.
And then you have manual creation of the work, but instead of that, you're actually feeding it to an AI agent, which one agent may be specialized in just making social media. Another agent may be just making email communications.
Right, for a
Another,
CRM, a customer relationship management program. Each
yes.
each of which, by the way, are specialties within these large agencies. There are
Mm-hmm.
CRM departments. There's a
Mm-hmm.
social media department. So
Mm-hmm.
even though you have core content, it goes department to department in the
Mm-hmm.
spaghetti bowl of project management and traffic
Absolutely.
confusion. So
Yeah.
imagine, to Noriko's point, having an agent or maybe a few interconnected agents, not only not only trained, if you will, on the core clinical information and messaging of a treatment or a device, but on the compliance and regulatory constraints of that content within each channel. Here are
Mm-hmm.
the rules for social media engagement to ensure compliance with
Abs-
FDA, OPDP regulations.
yes.
So you have
And
a smart engine
it
able
really
to do
is
the
like
work.
yeah, it's really like a smart engine. You can almost call it like a modular content library, which, has
Right,
been quite popular. But now that, generative AI can create a hub of its own, you actually have two roads, two paths in front of you. You don't even have to create the, modular content library. You can go straight to a generative AI content hub instead. And, what's really beautiful about this is, Spitz, as you mentioned, you have so many different departments, and where the mistakes happen is you have such fragmentation in agencies with different department heads leading the charge that small changes start to take place in the messaging and in terms of how the communications should be developed. And at the end point, you have, these different communications across channels that are not consistent anymore because so many different people have touched it. And this is one of the, beauty of the Content Hub, because you're not going to have so many people touching it. You can have a human in the loop, or several humans reviewing it. You definitely want somebody reviewing it, but it's not going to be as the many people that you actually have who actually touch it, review it, give their thoughts, and then at some point it sort of derails itself, which is really everyone's nightmare.
Yeah. So let's land on our feet with a hypothetical use case
Hmm.
scenario.
Hmm.
We have Mookie Spitz Pharma.
Hmm.
I have a new treatment for chocolate addiction, for
Hmm.
chocolitis.
Hmm.
And I have an omni-channel campaign that I'm launching. I have social media posts. I have ads on Facebook.
Hmm.
I have various placements that I'm
Hmm.
doing, and then I have my core content. Uh, you demonstrated the interface to me, which I thought was striking.
Hmm.
Take me through on the back end the various inputs that the agency can put into your three cubed AI system to get the output that they're looking for.
Hmm. So, a model like this is a little bit different from something that, Microsoft will be offering right now, or Salesforce or HubSpot. If you go to any of these companies, they have these, $50 agentic AI that you can purchase, um, which does very simple things, right? Um, whether it be, to create an email based on the inbound lead that came in, or look at the competitive analysis. They're very simple things that agentics can do now. What we're really after is creating something very customized based on this very complex communications based on very regulated system. So what we do have to do on the back end is to create what we called a RAG system. It's a retrieval augmented generation, which is a generative AI way of saying it's a database, but it's pulled by uh, generative AI. And in there is where we have the DNA of everything. And we pass it out, we put it into messages, etc. So you have a whole library there. And then what we're doing is creating instructions basically for the end user. So the input would be very much related to Mookie's chocolate addiction, and the fact that Mookie's chocolate addiction is going to be messaging through social media, and you're going to need 3 or 4 different social media posts. So what I would be doing is using an interface integrated into your communications at the moment. So, at Mookie's, you may be using a Slack channel for communications. You may be using a Microsoft Teams. You use something that is organic to the way you communicate with others to instruct. And what you would say is Mookie's, let's call it Mookie's Content Hub. Create 3 social media posts to raise awareness. And that's basically all you need to do. Like, not like ChatGPT, where you have to keep on going about tonality, the target audience, messaging, etc. You have to go back and forth. No, you just have to say what you want. And then, because the back end is the agentic AI working based on instructions that you've already put into it,
Mhm.
it is actually doing the work, and it can do the work in about 2 minutes. So a lot of it is hidden, but there's a lot of work that goes into creating the system to enable 3 social media posts to be created in 2 or 3 minutes. Basically, what we would probably have one agent do is create headlines based on approved content. One agent will have the image that is approved by the clients and have 2 to 3 variations of that. You can have call to action, again, 2 to 3 options.
Right.
or more. That all makes sense, right? So it's really creating the sausage, but it's doing it on the back end at scale and at speed.
So step one,
Hmm.
you gotta load the RAG. You gotta
Yes.
load the database. And
Hmm.
loading the database is not a bunch of AI entities creating content. This is content that is coming from the package insert of my chocolitis treatment
Hmm. Yes.
regimen. Okay,
Yes.
so it has the efficacy and safety data
Hmm.
extracted from the clinical trials that helped approve my chocolitis treatment. That
Hmm.
goes into the database. That is the DNA of
Hmm.
this brand. Now,
Hmm.
there's another very important step. The strategists and creative people at my agency working with the clients
Hmm.
have created a campaign for my chocolitis drug.
Hmm.
The AI is not creating this campaign with
That's
your
right.
three cubed AI.
Yeah.
This is part of the core content that goes into your engine because I want to be
Hmm.
very, very clear as to where you're activated and what you do.
That's right. That's
So
right.
the strategy, the identification of target audience, the messaging,
Hmm.
the campaign, the creative samples. We are using this image and not that image. The brand palette, the logo, all the goods that go into a branded or even awareness campaign for my drug go into your database as the
That's right.
core. That's what you're calling the DNA. Those are the Lego pieces
Hmm.
that get constructed and reconstructed in different formats based on the tactical output of your campaign.
Hmm.
So all this is preloaded into your agentic three cubed AI model.
Hmm.
And then the magic happens when you put in a few queries, create 3 social media ads,
Hmm.
or even more specifically, create 3 ads with these dimensions. And then it goes into that core database and it uses the magic of the transformer technology coupled with the agentic approach for sequencing multiple tasks to within minutes do what would otherwise take weeks
That's
for
right.
for a team to do to cobble together that aggregate data in an
Hmm.
intelligent way
Hmm.
and reconstitute it in the format of the tactical execution by channel.
That's right.
Does that sound right? Okay.
That sounds absolutely right. And there's a
Okay.
reason, yeah, there's a reason behind that. The reason behind us not going into original content is we've seen a lot more advancement in terms of text when we're thinking about generative AI. We think about images, yes, there's been a lot of progress with Sora, with ChatGPT,
Yeah, and video too. Sora is
video.
actually video. I
Yes.
want a video of Mookie on a bouncy ball with bunny ears juggling
Mm-hmm.
Rubik's cubes in a
Mm-hmm.
library. And
Mm-hmm.
literally within about a minute or two, there's the video clip of me and
Right.
bunny ears juggling Rubik's cubes on a bouncy ball in a library.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So everything's, fast forwarded to a really great place, but there's still a lot of hallucinations, especially with imagery. And there's still so many questions around copyright and the ability to really create a an image that is exactly like the original using generative AI,
Yeah.
imagery, and videos. So we
And
decided at this point that we
that's
were,
premature. That's premature.
yes,
And let's
that's
not
right.
forget the human element,
Mm-hmm.
Noriko, because you're a senior level strategist with decades of experience. You know that the human element, the mythical AGI, has
Mm-hmm.
not been attained. So to create a campaign for a brand,
Mm-hmm.
I could see campaign generating AI coming in the future, but I don't even think the technology is there yet. It could create iterations and samples, but you can't remove the human from the strategy, from the creativity, and from the campaign development. I don't think yet.
Mm.
I don't think yet.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, there's been a lot of attempts at it. I think the biggest sort of um, advertising that everyone talked about most recently was the Coca-Cola Christmas campaign,
Right.
where they'd recreated the Coca-Cola campaign, and you could tell that it just didn't have that life. It just didn't have that spark. And there was so much, there were so many comments about it, negative comments about it. And so, and there were so many people who worked on it on the back end to make it work. The whole
Oh
point.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a fake it till you make it is not
Yeah.
only in the arts, but frankly, it's in technology too.
Mm-hmm.
Cobbling this stuff together, especially for generative demonstrations
Mm.
that have a tremendous amount of sophistication.
Yeah.
And Google, with its Gemini rollout last year, got whiplash from people who called them out on their demo being a mishmash of AI, but with tweaking. A lot of tweaking went into that very impressive demo. So we need to
Mm.
be careful. Not only is there ubiquitous AI hype, but there's a lot of faking it until you make it in
Mm.
Silicon Valley. Recently, Meta got dinged for cherry picking efficiency results on their flops. It was kind of, hey guys, busted. So I guess the overall point of this segment is that you got to be responsible and do what you do well and focus on that. And in terms of what I'm calling downstream agentic content creation for repurposing and multipurposing in our digital omni-channel environment, this works.
It works, and
Yeah.
it works because it's repetitive. The task is very clear.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of, it's a volume play, really.
Yeah.
And what it does for so many agencies, especially smaller agencies, is to be able to compete with the bigger agencies through something like a content hub like this. Usually you had to have, a 500-person agency to be able to roll out, 3, 4 different launch tactics at the same time. But if you had a content hub like this, it's really not dependent on the number of people that work for your for your company. It's really how fast the agentic model can actually create the pieces so that it allows you to be so much smaller, more nimble, faster, and be very creative about what your agency provides. And if you want to be creating the original concepts, you can, focus on that versus trying to do the entire pull, which is end to end. And so it just enables you to be much more creative.
So you've sold me. If I want to see a demonstration of this in action with a use case pulled
Mm.
out, I contact you and say,
Yeah.
"Hey, Noriko, can you show me what you got under the hood?"
Yes, absolutely.
And then you could do that. You'll show me core content.
Mm-hmm.
Then you'll show me the parameters that I can tweak to get the
Yes.
output that I desire.
Mm-hmm.
And then you hit return, and the agents of three cubed AI go to work like
Yes.
little elves behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And then literally the output is the ads themselves, dynamically tweaked as
Mm.
prescribed. So
Mm-hmm.
you have this demo. I could check it out for my chocolitis treatment.
Absolutely. I mean,
Okay, and we'll put a link in the
Mhm.
podcast description for you to reach out to Noriko to see it in action.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And you'll see that, a lot of people were like, well, how many times should I insert a human? Can we insert a human like 5 times into the process? And we're like, well, that defeats the whole purpose. The whole point was to be minimal in human intervention.
Right. But
And
they
then,
can tweak. So it's input
hmm
and output. So you have the
hmm
input based on the DNA that we described,
yeah,
and then there's processing in the black box of three cubed AI, and then there's output. But
Yeah.
then there's human observation and comment on the
Yeah.
output, and then you put it back in. Based on the
That's.
output, you can ask it to tweak what was
Mm-hmm.
done based on
Mm.
certain parameters. That, I'm assuming, is also possible. Like,
Yes.
move the logo down,
Yes.
reformat this for a different layout based
Absolutely.
on output. So
Yes.
it's iterative post hoc.
Yeah, so we basically recommend, just two reviews. So two times, twice that human is in the loop. And one of the times we really encourage people to use the same technology that they're using now, and a lot of agencies are using Zyflow in order to have multiple people go in and make comments. And we encourage them to make those comments, and then we will, or the AI will learn what is a mandatory comment and what is a variable comment.
Excellent. Right.
Yeah,
Right. You
yeah.
weight, transformer technology is based on weighting. So
Mm-hmm.
you actually weight the feedback as
Yes,
well in terms of
yes.
prioritization. You do to make this compliant, you drop dead gotta do this.
Mm-hmm.
But aesthetically it would be nice if you did that.
Yes, exactly. So
Yeah.
those are the things that we would automate as well. You know,
Terrific.
yeah, so yeah.
That's very exciting. Let's address a couple of elephants in the room, if you
Mm-hmm.
don't mind.
Sure.
The first elephant in the room is, and I know that big agencies need to be beholden to their private equity investors, especially the larger holding company models. And billing hours is the road to riches.
Mm-hmm.
Now, AI is highly disruptive. When you're advocating the heightening of efficiencies, what we're really doing is we're slashing billable hours from agencies to their clients. Now,
Mm-hmm.
ostensibly, that could and should be seen as a good thing,
Mm-hmm.
but disruption comes at a cost.
Mm-hmm.
So conceivably, some pushback might be quality. You need people to do this, not machines. Another
Mm-hmm.
piece of pushback might even just be what I just said, which is you're disrupting our entire model of doing business.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, on the flip side, there's pushback on the part of people who conceivably could lose their jobs.
Mm-hmm.
So, being that disruptor, how would you address some of these issues and concerns? Have you encountered any kind of resistance based on these and other concerns and considerations?
Mm-hmm.
And how do we go about affecting transformative change, which is flipping monetization and business models on their head
Mm-hmm.
uh, to heighten efficiency and save money? And yet it comes at a human and equity cost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. I mean, we have these conversations all the time. You know, we talk about the disruption that's in the marketplace, that we are disrupting the business model. But this is the fact. The fact is, if we don't do it, someone else is going to do it, and someone else is already doing it. If you look at the advertising agency model that we have, it's a sort of shrinking in terms of market size because, when digital came along, ad tech, firms started coming in. Now generative AI firms are coming in. So they are increasing in size year over year, and advertising agencies are static. So, when people say this, my point is that you are already being disrupted, and this is your chance to push back and find a different model, because you can never compete against technology that is scalable, that's faster than you. And if you resist that and maintain a manual process, sure, you can say you are excellent, you have great people. It's like, two very different competitive vehicles. It's like the horse and the
Yeah.
automobile. It's just
Yeah,
not
yeah. There's
comparable.
the inevitability of transformation. To your
Yeah.
point, transformation has already occurred. when you do programmatic advertising and somebody
Mhm.
pulls up a web page, there's literally thousands of bids that are
Mhm.
happening in real time
Mhm.
to place an ad on your screen. That's
Mhm.
AI.
Mhm.
It's already endemic within advertising, marketing, communication, dynamic content, recommended content. When you
Mhm.
go to Netflix and it's
Mhm.
making recommendations based on your preferences, that, ladies and gentlemen, is AI.
Mhm.
So, and the pharma companies themselves have been using AI already, all the way back to the clinical analyses and the pull through. So, AI is already endemic, and
Yes.
there's an inevitability here. There's another important argument, I think, is that when these more remedial tasks are done by the agents,
Mm.
it frees up the human capital to do other stuff. And that might
Mhm.
sound like a rationalization for mass layoffs in the advertising industry. But I have spoken to people in the advertising industry, including a very talented young woman, a Gen Zer. I call her the Zoomer.
Mhm.
And she's a digital nomad. She was just in Tokyo and she travels throughout the world and she works virtually. And she is changing her skill sets and adaptive and making herself valuable to companies providing human expertise that the machines are still incapable of doing. So
Mm.
it is rough out there. It's transactional, it's brutal, it's Darwinian, but to your point, it's inevitable. And I think we're all better off to take a Pollyanna view of this technology that we are assigning the machines to do the repetitive tasks better served by machines to
Mm.
make us more creative, not less.
That's right.
And there's no pain, no gain.
That's right.
It's
I mean, and one of the things that you hear from advertising agencies all the time is about how innovative they are. We're
yeah,
transformative, we're innovative, we're cutting edge. Yet, you don't really see a lot of that actually in place. And what we mean by that is that an innovative company is always testing and pushing the boundary, right? In terms of what they're offering, what they're doing, etc. And for so long, advertising agencies have not done that, haven't been able to do that because of constraints.
yeah,
And so, what advertising agencies can do is really start innovating in a way that they haven't been able to do for a long time. So, it's really a wake up call and it is a liberating moment. Of
yeah.
course, it is.
It's very, very difficult. And a lot of
Mhm.
people are being laid off and losing. But
Mhm.
here's another Pollyanna
Mhm.
proposal that I am offering. You mentioned new opportunities for agencies to be truly innovative.
Mhm.
Instead of wasting time with this endless cycle of regulatory and compliance review, make the agents do it, and then free up your time for A/B testing of dynamic content. You can
Yeah,
make these ads in minutes.
absolutely.
Take a programmatic approach to content creation. And the
Mm.
humans can manage this kind of dynamic, real time testing of content in a way which is much more sophisticated and impactful. You can actually do unprecedented degrees of measurement of the efficacy of your ads by being able to recreate ads in minutes instead of
Mm.
weeks and months. And that's one of an endless array of new and innovative opportunities that agencies can provide with freshly trained real humans
Mhm.
to help manage and drive these initiatives for clients who'd be hungry to heighten the return on their investment of digital investment. And an undercurrent of a lot of what we're talking about is frankly clients calling BS
Mhm.
on digital metrics. That earthquake happened about 5 years ago,
Mhm.
and they would just threw their arms up and I go, you're giving me these reports which are PowerPoint decks of 100 slides. I can't make heads or tails of this, and you're telling me that for my $10 million I'm getting X results.
Mhm.
Really? Based on what?
Yeah.
Well, now with the ads being able to be dynamically generated with this efficiency, it's a whole new ball game.
Absolutely. It's one of the things that a lot of people have spoken to me about after seeing the Content Hub. The next thing that they all say is, we used to do this A/B testing, and because of the human capital that went into creating these
Yes,
tests, that
right.
the dollar sum that was given by the client only went so far. But
Yeah,
imagine if it went into the system, then you
yeah,
have so much more, in terms of testing materials versus human resourcing. So quite a few people have talked about that, and so it's really a great sort of avenue for using our content hub. And
yeah,
when we talk about people being laid off, etc., the thing is there is an opportunity to upskill. I mean, prompt engineering, not the prompt engineering that you might just do when you're typing into ChatGPT, but agentic systems need prompt engineers who are thinking through the problem, the pain points, and creating the instructions. They call them, few shot prompts and things
yes.
like that. But that prompting becomes,
The
yeah.
meta prompt, which
Mm-hmm.
is the prompt of the prompt. Once
Yes.
again, input, output,
Mm-hmm. And that,
input, output.
yes. And
How do
that
you
becomes really
optimize
critical.
that flow? How do you optimize that
Yes,
linear flow so it makes
exactly.
sense? Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
and you're getting the output that you really, really want.
Yes, so that's
Yeah.
where like a project manager could become a prompt engineer, etc. So there's so many different ways of upskilling and seeing opportunities to show your value. So I'm not as scared for people who are open-minded and flexible and will take courses and think about how they can reposition themselves. It's those people who are sort of too stuck in their ways, too stubborn about what they, do now and think that that's the only way forward.
Yeah, and again, to your point, there's inevitability of transformation. And
Mm-hmm.
the overall result will be heightening efficiencies and lowering costs. And when has that ever been a foundational problem? That is the goal.
Right.
So it always comes at cost,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a matter of having that malleability in terms of professional skills to take what you've known and evolve into this new environment where the machines haven't taken over the world yet,
Mm-hmm.
but so far they have agentic assistance to hopefully make our lives better and easier,
That's
which
right.
is a good thing. And there's also opportunities upstream. So even in the creation of some of that core content, there could be opportunities for agentic assistance.
Mm-hmm.
And further downstream, plugged into your process from a legal and regulatory review and compliance point of view. Right now, you have
Mm-hmm.
armies of lawyers
Mm-hmm.
and experts on the client side who
Mm-hmm.
belabor over every change on every iteration.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine empowering an agentic system to review these with the efficiency of the generation of these iterations.
Yeah. I mean,
Why not? The
mm,
regulations don't change, and
right.
ostensibly, they're not supposed to be, subjective.
That's
So
right.
it's
Yeah.
it's a, it's a system of evaluation, which is an algorithm,
Yeah, that's right.
which is
So,
programmable. So
yeah,
I know that's the other end of the equation, and
that's right.
perhaps an opportunity for three cubed AI 2.0.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
thank you for this. This is once again, I want to tie a bow on the entire pod by saying that AI is the number one buzzword, as well it should be. But I think it behooves all of us to cut through the BS, and anyone can bloviate about AGI and the future of humanity. But for the most part, that's science fiction. And where the rubber hits the road is in startups exactly like yours, taking the technology that exists right now and applying it in a pragmatic way that addresses a key unmet need to fill that white space to get things done better, faster, cheaper. and open the door to new opportunities for no, not human beings to be made unemployed, and as the English say, redundant, but to have better jobs that further empower us to keep life more interesting, hopefully more fun and enjoyable before the machines really do take over the world.
Absolutely, Spitz. This was really great.
This was
Thanks so
really,
much.
really fun. And once
Yes.
again, we'll be putting links in the description for you to contact Noriko directly. She has use cases. She could plug the machine in for you and demonstrate the capabilities as an effective way to heighten these efficiencies to bring about the transformation that she espouses. So here we go, folks. Everything is changing, and those who are at the front of the line, I think, get the best benefit.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
so much. And
everyone.
yeah, and thank you for listening to the Bald Ambition Podcast.